That's the electronics laid out. Starts up at the top. With a P-dot tube. Coming back right behind that to a sensor for the airspeed P-dot tube, airspeed sensor. That's running I²C off of that compass GPS module that's there. Let's see if I can find. That's an M10 L4 3100 GPS compass module. It's also got a barometer in it. You'd have to look it up to see everything on it. Not going to speak about it right here, right now. That is a camera. And it comes straight back to the little USB connector for the H743 wing that's right here. And next to the flight controller is just this little dampening pad, whatever. I just got it off of Amazon. I'm going to try it rather than double-sided taping this flight controller straight to the bottom of the airplane like I've been doing with all the other ones that, who knows, might not maiden well behind me. To the left of that right here is a video transmitter that goes with that camera up there. And then behind that we have the Dragon Link 433 with an RC connection coming out for control, and the other 6-wire connectors for telemetry back to the flight controller, so this can transmit telemetry. Behind that is the 60 amp ESC. Got a little problem with that. It seems what was sent, the barrel connectors on the motor here and the barrel connectors on the ESC are two totally different sizes. I've got a kit coming that's going to fix that. Just an assortment of barrel connectors. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with that yet, because I could cheat a little and have only one of these shop right now. This is a banana barrel connector, the size I need. But the thing is this little cup right here will go over one of these fairly well. What it did earlier. Yeah, there we go. It's a little tight. I could solder that onto that, and now this will fit in there, well, like it should. Yeah, just I hate to have another solder joint in the whole thing, just screwing with everything. Every time you add a break in a wire and have to solder it, or solder something to another point like that right there, you have added resistance, all sorts of garbage. So I prefer not to do it. But I do have, like I say, an assortment of plugs coming where I may just change out the end on these wires real quick. Just something like this. But like I say, this is the only one I've got in the house right now. I don't even have two others to do my little workaround. But, you know, in a pinch, you could solder that onto the end of the other one, because they are kind of size compatible adapters, it looks like almost. But the other barrel connectors get here. We'll have that, and that of course goes over to the motor. Right here, motor, ESC, RC control, little vibration dampening, flight controller. Oops, I didn't say anything about this little board right in front of the flight controller. It's a LiDAR board for auto landings. I'll be playing with that on this. I have to wire that completely. That LiDAR board comes just like you see it, no wires or anything along with it, so you have to do your own wires. It's a UART setup. It's one of the reasons I'm a little afraid here that I'm going to be running low on UARTs. This video transmitter uses a UART too, and it can possibly use more than one. But we'll talk more about that when we get into that section of the build. The only other problem I've found is with the compass where I would like to put it on the airplane. Getting the PDOT tube in the very front of the airplane, because it's so large, tubing back to that sensor, and then I2C wires from that sensor over to the I2C port on the GPS module is almost not enough to get to the front of the airplane. I do have some tubing over there with the inside diameter that goes on that airspeed sensor. I could make it 6 feet long if I wanted to. I've got like 50 feet of it over there. I just don't know. You know, technically you only have to hook up one side of that airspeed sensor. I've always hooked them both up in the past. Never wanted to play this game. But that right there, hooked to the correct side on that sensor, might just do what I need to do. Getting that PDOT tube way on out there, then cutting that tubing you see right there in half and only having, see, that's it, it only comes up like 4 or 5 inches short. So see, it's not a lot. So I guess that tube would be even shorter. But anyway, I was asked a question in the past, did length of that tube matter? And I told them I didn't think so. I looked all over the internet and couldn't find anything to say yes or no. Most people thought it didn't matter that said something. There weren't too many that were in the negative that spoke up. I think personally what's going on there, as long as the inside diameter on that tubing is the same, you can buy other tubing. I certainly did. Like I say, it's over there in the drawer, 50 feet of it. That when you do your first flight calibration of the airspeed sensor, that's when the length of the tubing gets compensated for, in my humble opinion. And speaking about the possibility of only having one tube on it instead of two, everybody knows how the darn things work, I hope. But for those that are new, see that hole right there in the side? There's several holes actually in the side of the tube. That's the tube that just gets the ambient pressure of current air pressure around you. The inlet that is the end of the tube is where you get the motion air. I think they call that the dynamic and call this the static, or it may be reversed air pressures. So the change in this one is what gives you airspeed. And see, that's truthfully only one side. So the ambient air pressure coming through these holes in the side here can be picked up just as easily, some say, by the opening right there in that sensor. That's that ambient side. And you don't even have to put 2 tubes all the way back to the sensor. And I've seen that for years. I've never seen it spoken against, but I've also never done it. So I don't know if I will use this tubing that came with it and run 1 tube, use the tubing I have over there and run 2 tubes that are slightly longer and still run both tubes. I do worry, because what they've said in the past is just the ambient pressure in here would be the same as at the hulls. Now that's true, except for the problem of these airplanes frequently have air holes for airflow through them. I'm afraid that wouldn't be exactly static pressure, that it would have some kind of pressure, because maybe the holes coming in the front of the airframe are larger than the ones going out, and it produces a little pressure inside the fuselage as part of the air flowing through it. I would think if the holes in the back were the same size or larger, that there wouldn't be any increase in air pressure. But unless you put some foam or something over that tube that's exposed on the sensor, there could be airflow, which is not just static barometric pressure, current barometric pressure outside without wind. So the other side is supposed to be current barometric pressure outside, wind compensated. In other words, it's supposed to sense how much wind there is. So see, in one way, with that PDOT tube being out in front of the airplane, not inside the fuselage, that static pressure out there would be fairly constant. That's the way it's made. So air blowing across it doesn't really get measured. And then my little problem back here with the barrel connectors. Looks like the only things I really have to solve on this, as long as my wiring here, well, I guess my wiring between the airspeed sensor and the GPS module will be fine if I lengthen that tube. That's one of the problems. It's not exactly just from there to the PDOT tube, it's actually from here out. Its whole length has to be considered. I think this will go more in the rear of the airplane. So just a little thinking about the hardware. Am I missing anything? I'm not sure I am. This ESC came with no connector on the power wires. It's a strange ESC. This is a connector for hooking up a programmer, I think. And this is the one I'm supposed to use for control, not this one. And with the no battery connector on it, I'm ready to solder it right there to those tabs. That's got my flight controller oriented forward. So that all looks good. I can't think of any other components I might want that aren't here. Well, except for different cameras and stuff like that. So, like I say, just smoking it over. Thank you, guys.